If you've ever had a normal night split your life into a clear before and after, you'll know exactly what I mean. I thought I was only getting a ride home. I assumed my Uncle Raymond was just being thoughtful, doing what family does. But somewhere between the flicker of streetlights and the low hush of the freeway, one unexpected detour didn't just change our route, it changed how I understood love, trust, and even myself. Before we jump in, tell me where you're watching from tonight. What city are you in? I always imagine a map lighting up in my head when I ask, like we're all together in one room, just scattered across different places. Now let me take you back to that night. It started the way so many evenings do when you're pretending you're fine. I'm Harper, mid-40s, the kind of woman who looks polished in public because I learned a long time ago that people don't know what to do with raw truth. I had a stable job, a neat little row house, and a smile that worked like a fresh coat of paint. But if you looked close enough, you could see the hairline cracks. That day had been heavy. Not dramatic heavy, just the slow, grinding kind that drains you without ever announcing itself. My phone had buzzed one message too many. The office had been loud. My thoughts had been louder. And by the time evening arrived, all I wanted was to disappear into quiet. My mom insisted on a family dinner. "You don't come around enough," she said like it was a joke instead of a soft accusation. So I went. I brought a supermarket cheesecake that tasted like sugar and compromise. I wore a knit top that made me look warmer than I felt. And I sat at that familiar table, surrounded by people who knew my childhood stories, but somehow didn't know the woman I'd become. Raymond was there. Technically, he was my uncle, but not in the distant, old-fashioned way. He was my mom's younger brother, only about 10 years older than me, and he'd always felt more like a steady older friend than a stern family figure. He had a calm presence that filled a room without demanding attention. The kind of man who listened with his eyes, not just his ears. He'd made his living behind the wheel for years, not a cab. Not an app, but professional driving, shipments, long routes, and occasional corporate runs when his company needed a reliable hand. He loved the road. He used to say it was the only place where his thoughts could finish a sentence. That night, he barely ate. Not because the food was bad, my mom's cooking could soften the hardest mood, but because he kept watching me with that quiet, patient concern. "You all right, Herb?" he asked when the table talk swelled around us. I gave him my practice smile, just tired. He didn't press. He just nodded like he heard what I wasn't saying and decided to give me room to say it later, if I chose. When dinner ended, I tried to slip out fast. My mom was hugging everyone, reminding people to drive carefully, pushing leftovers into hands like love could be packed into containers. Outside, the cold bit at my cheeks. My car was parked down the street, small neighborhood, tight parking, and the walk suddenly felt longer than it should have. Raymond appeared beside me with his keys already out. "I'll take you home," he said. "I'm fine," I answered automatically. "I know you're fine," he replied, gently steady, not sharp. "But let me drive anyway." There was something in the way he said it, not an order, not pity, more like a handrail offered without making you admit you're wobbling. So I said yes. His car was clean, not flashy, but clearly cared for. It smelled faintly like fir needles, and something warm, maybe coffee that had lingered too long in the cup holder. The dash lights glowed a soft aqua. He waited until I buckled up, the way he always did with everyone, then eased us onto the road. For the first few minutes, we didn't talk. The neighborhood slid past in quiet frames, porch lights, bare branches, a dog barking somewhere distant. I stared out the passenger window as if the darkness might hand me answers. Raymond kept both hands steady on the wheel. He drove the way he lived, controlled, attentive, never in a hurry. After a while, he asked, "Want to tell me what's going on?" I swallowed. My throat felt tight, like my body had been holding something in for days and didn't know how to let it out. It's nothing, I started, then let out a small laugh that sounded like a lie even to me. It's not nothing. I feel like I'm losing my footing. He nodded once, eyes still on the road. That happens. I looked at him. To you. To everyone? He said, to most people. Some just get better at hiding it. Something about that easy honesty cracked me open. Maybe it was the casual truth. Maybe it was the way he didn't look disappointed or alarmed. He made room for me to be human. I've been trying to do everything right, I admitted. Work, family, bills, being responsible. But lately I wake up and I don't recognize my own life. Raymond didn't rush to patch it up. He didn't throw out slogans. He just listened, making the silence between my sentences feel safe instead of awkward. We reached a stretch where the streetlights were spaced farther apart and the dark grew thicker. The headlights carved a narrow tunnel ahead. Outside, the world looked like it could swallow you if you stepped out of the car. Then he said quietly, I'm proud of you. I blinked. For what? For still showing up, he said. Even when you're not sure what you're showing up for. My eyes stung. That one sentence landed heavier than anything my boss had ever said, heavier than any polite compliment across a dinner table. I turned toward the window so he wouldn't see my face change. I hated crying in front of people. It made me feel exposed like a house with the curtains thrown open. Raymond noticed anyway. He reached over, not touching me, not crossing a line, just resting his hand near the center console, palm open like an offer. Quiet, respectful, no pressure. The gesture said everything. If you want connection, it's here. If you don't, I'll still be here. My fingers hovered, then rested lightly against his for a moment. The touch was brief, simple, and somehow it felt like the first honest thing I'd done all week. I didn't realize how tight my body had been until my shoulder eased down on its own. You've got a good heart, Harper, he said, but you carry too much alone. I let out a shaky breath. I don't want to be a burden. You're not, he replied. Your family. And even if you weren't caring about someone isn't a burden, it's a choice. And I'm choosing it. The road curved and the trees grew denser on both sides. I frowned as landmarks shifted. Raymond, this isn't the way to my place. He glanced at me briefly, then back ahead. I know. My stomach tightened, not exactly fear, more that cautious alertness women learn without a lesson plan. Where are we going? I asked carefully. His voice stayed even. There's a lookout up ahead. 5 minutes. I'm not taking you somewhere strange, I promise. I don't think you should go home to an empty house tonight and let your thoughts chew you up. I hesitated. Then I heard it in his tone concern, not control. A suggestion, not a trap. He was still the same Raymond, the man who always made space for people to breathe. Okay, I said softly. 5 minutes. We drove in silence again, but it felt different now, less distant, more intentional. When we reached the lookout, the world opened wide. It was higher ground, the kind of spot locals know and tourists never find. The city lights spilled below us like scattered gold. The air up there was colder, crisp enough to sting, but the view made the cold feel worth it. Raymond parked and shut off the engine, and the sudden quiet felt loud. No tire hum, no engine vibration, just wind, steady and thin. He didn't hop out. He didn't assume. He looked at me and asked, "Is this okay?" That question, so small, so respectful, loosened. Something in me, yes, I said, it's okay. We stepped out into the cold. The sky was dark velvet dotted with stars. I pulled my sweater tighter around myself. Raymond walked a few paces away at first, giving me room to take it in. He never crowded. He never rushed. I leaned against the guardrail and stared down at the lights. Sometimes, I said, I think I've been strong for so long that I forgot what I actually feel. Raymond came to stand beside me, not too close, and rested his forearms on the rail. Strength isn't never feeling, he said. Strength is letting yourself feel without letting it ruin you. My breath fogged in front of me. You always talk like you've got life figured out. He gave a quiet chuckle. Oh, no. I just have more practice being honest with myself. That took a long time. I turned to look at him. In the dim light, his face looked softer, tired, human. What happened to you? I asked before I could stop myself. He didn't answer right away. His jaw tightened the way someone's does when they're deciding whether to open a door they've kept locked for years. Then he said, I lost someone I loved because I thought providing was the same as being present. The words hung in the air, plain and heavy. I don't want you to make the same mistake, he added. Not with yourself. I stared at the city again, blinking hard. The truth was, I'd been grieving too. Not a person, exactly more like a version of my life I thought I'd have. The version where love felt safe, where home felt warm, where I didn't have to negotiate with myself to get out of bed. Raymond didn't ask for details. He simply stayed beside me while my silence said them. And then the real turn happened, not on the road, but inside me. I realized I wasn't just tired. I wasn't just stressed. I was lonely in a way I'd been pretending didn't count. I'd been surviving, not living. And standing there with the wind cutting through the night and the city glowing below, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, seen. Not admired, not judged, just seen. I turned toward him. Thank you, I said. For what? He asked. For noticing, I replied. For not letting me hide behind I'm fine. He nodded, eyes steady. You shouldn't have. To disappear to be okay. We stayed out there longer than I expected. The cold bit at my fingers. Raymond noticed, and without making it a big deal, shrugged off his jacket and offered it. I hesitated. You'll be freezing. I'm used to it, he said. I took it. It was warm from him and heavier than it looked. It smelled like clean fabric and faint aftershave. I slipped it on and for a moment felt held without being touched. That's when I said something I'd never said out loud to anyone. I'm scared, I admitted. Raymond didn't flinch. Of what? Of waking up 10 years from now and realizing I never chose my own life. I whispered. He looked at me, and there was something fierce and kind in his expression. Then choose it now, he said. The words rang in the cold air like a bell. Choose it now, not later, not when it's convenient, not when everyone approves. Now, I swallowed hard. I don't even know where to start. Raymond nodded toward the car. Start with tonight. Start with getting home safe. Start with one honest decision. We walked back slowly. The wind followed us. The stars stayed sharp. And inside me, something clicked like the first turn of a key in a lock, like a door. Beginning to open, he drove again, even calmer than before. When we re-entered the city streets, the lights felt different, less like a blur, more like a map. I watched Raymond's hands on the wheel, steady and practiced, and I realized the road wasn't the only thing he knew how to navigate. When we pulled up in front of my row house, he didn't rush me out. He put the car in park and turned slightly toward me. Harper, he said softly, I need you to hear something. I looked at him. What? He took a breath, and I could see the weight behind it, like what he was about to say mattered more than pride. I didn't take you to that lookout just to distract you, he admitted. I took you because I've been wanting to tell you something for a long time, and tonight felt like the first time you might actually be ready to hear it. My heart began to beat harder, not from fear, but from the sense that the night still wasn't done turning. I held his jacket tighter. Tell me, I said, my voice barely there. Raymond's gaze stayed steady, careful, respectful, like he knew words. can be powerful, and he refused to waste them. And then he began. Raymond didn't speak immediately. The engine ticked softly as it cooled, tiny metallic clicks filling the space between us. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and uneven, like my body already knew whatever was coming. Mattered. I'm listening, I said again, firmer this time. He nodded slowly, as if grounding himself. I've watched you for years, he began. Family holidays, birthdays, the way you always stay behind to help clean up even when you're exhausted. The way you laugh at the right moments so no one asks questions. My chest tightened, not defensively recognized. And every time he continued, I think she reminds me of someone. I swallowed. Who? Me, he said quietly. That surprised me enough to turn fully toward him. I spent half my life thinking responsibility was the same thing as purpose, he went on. Like if I drove enough miles, paid enough bills, stayed dependable enough, I'd finally feel whole. He let out a breath that sounded almost like a sad smile. It doesn't work like that. Outside. My street was still. One porch light flickered down the block. The night felt paused, like it was giving us room. I don't want to overstep, he said carefully, and I don't want you to misunderstand me. What I feel isn't confusion, and it's not anything improper. It's concern, it's respect. It's care from seeing someone standing at the same edge I once stood on. My heart slowed. I realized I'd been bracing without knowing why. I didn't take you up there to change your life, he added. I took you so you'd remember you're allowed to change it yourself. Something warm rose behind my eyes. You really believe that? I asked. I know it, he said, because I waited too long. He looked straight ahead, hands resting loosely on the wheel. I lost my marriage, he admitted, not because of betrayal or drama, but because I stopped speaking honestly. I got so busy being the dependable one that I forgot to be the present one. I sat very still as his words settled in me, slow like snow instead of rain. When it ended, he continued, I promised myself I wouldn't stay silent again when I saw someone I cared about shrinking. I thought of all the nights I'd dismissed my own feelings, all the times I told myself tomorrow would be different without changing anything. So this is you not staying silent, I said. Yes, he answered simply. We sat there with the truth between us, and it wasn't suffocating. It was grounding, real. I handed his jacket back slowly, and our fingers brushed brief and ordinary, but meaningful because nothing about it was rushed or hidden. Thank you, I said again, for trusting me with that. He nodded. Thank you for hearing it the way I meant it. I opened the car door, then paused. Raymond, I asked, if I don't change everything overnight if I take it slowly, is that still choosing? He smiled, not wide, just genuine. It's the only kind of choosing that lasts. I stepped out into the cold, jacketless now, but strangely warm inside. The air smelled like damp pavement and winter. Home looked the same as it always had, but I didn't feel the same standing in front of it. Before I shut the door, I leaned, backened slightly. I'm glad it was you driving tonight, I said. Anyone else would have taken me straight home and left me alone with my thoughts. He met my eyes. And I'm glad you said yes. I closed the door gently and watched his car pull away, taillights glowing red before disappearing around the corner, inside my house. The silence was familiar, but no longer threatening. I set my keys down, kicked off my shoes, and stood in the living room just breathing. My phone buzzed with notifications I didn't rush to answer. For once, my thoughts weren't racing ahead of me. I made a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the quiet street. That night didn't end with fireworks or a dramatic decision. It ended with clarity. Over the next few weeks, small things shifted. I started saying no without apologizing. I stopped filling every empty moment with noise. I took walks without headphones. I called people I trusted and spoke honestly, even when my voice shook. Raymond and I talked too, not constantly, not dramatically, just check ins and real conversations. He never pushed, never hovered, and he respected my space the same way he had that night. And whenever I felt myself sliding back into old patterns, I remembered the road, the overlook, the city lights below. That unexpected detour was never really about where we drove. It was about direction. I didn't become fearless overnight. I didn't reinvent myself in one bold move, but I began choosing presence over autopilot, truth over comfort, growth over quiet resignation. And years from now, when I look back on the moment my life shifted, I won't remember it as the night my uncle gave me a ride. I'll remember it as the night someone saw me clearly and reminded me it was finally time to see myself the same way.